Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And today we are going over our college football quarterfinals review. Just recapped, watched all the games this past day, and now we're going to go over everything that occurred in these games. Now, fresh off probably the game of the year, we're going to go backwards and we're going to talk about Ole Miss, Georgia. Usually we talk about the first game in chronological order to the last one. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk about possibly the game of the year in Ole Miss, Georgia. First time these guys matched up, it was also a tremendous game as well, back and forth game, similar to this game. Now, I predicted Ole Miss to win this game. I really liked Ole Miss chances. Not only do I say that I always like the team that loses first in the second time, because I feel like if you beat a team the first time around, you're not really fixing anything. You're not really making changes. This team that loses is a team making changes, which I think they do have the advantage playing them the second time around. I kind of like that. But let's get right into it. Oh, my Lord. Trinidad Chambliss put on his Superman cape in this game. He was absolutely phenomenal. If you are a college football fan, I don't want to minimize everybody's performances throughout the year, but this was the type of performance we were waiting for. Trinidad Chambliss in this game just had absolute stones. When we seen the plays he was making, the NFL type throws, and this is why I was saying to you guys 2 days ago that Trinidad Chambliss could be the most dangerous player in this entire tournament. One, not only because of the unknown of him, how little everybody has seen of him. Obviously, he comes in like 3 games within the season, but we all know the story. He's coming from Division II. There's not a lot of tape on Trinidad Chambliss. But him being the only true dual threat quarterback left in this tournament, and he showed in this game not only his ability to make throws on the run, especially dangerous throws on the run, but he's able to win in the pocket as well. When we look at Trinidad Chambliss, as soon as Ole Miss gained momentum, this game was pretty much over because Trinidad Chambliss was going to do whatever he could to win this game. When we look at the one drive everybody does want to talk about, the drive for them to take the lead, when we saw Trinidad Chambliss multiple times escape the pocket and make just throws that take tremendous amount of stones to make. When we look at Trinidad Chambliss, let's look at the first play of him rolling out. When he rolls out all the way to the right, then rolls out back to his left side, back up in his end zone, then floats that ball to Kawan Lacey. I mean, come on. And then the next play after that rolls all the way to the right, throws like a 40-yard dot down the sidelines. Trinidad Chambliss was locked in, and he was making dangerous throws. And this was the thing when I was talking about Ole Miss and Georgia, how much I love Trinidad Chambliss over Gunnar Stockton. I don't want to take anything away from Gunnar Stockton. He led this offense to 34 points. He played a great game as well, in my opinion. But Trinidad Chambliss is an absolute game changer. This guy truly could be not only the most dangerous quarterback in the tournament, the best quarterback in the tournament. I know that's so unfair to say with Fernando Mendoza, the season he's having, but Trinidad Chambliss is a game changer. He's a true dual threat. And I told you guys how much I love Ole Miss receiving core. I like it because their receiving core is 4 receivers deep, and anybody could pop in the game. It's not like he's force-feeding any number 1 receiver. And that's exactly what happened in this game. Harrison Wallace, 9 receptions, 156 yards, and a touchdown. Boy, the jump that he made from Penn State. Then you look at Deshaun Stribling, 7 receptions, 122 yards. He had a great game. Caden Lee, Deuce Alexander, they didn't shine too much in that game, but we all know the receivers they are. Kawan Lacey, one of the best backs in the country, he puts in 2 touchdowns. Like, Trinidad Chambliss down the stretch in this game, it was unreal. Between the throws that he was making outside the pocket that he was daring himself to make. And again, when you look at a Georgia defense as fast as they are, when he's making these out-of-script plays, there was absolutely no answer. And then the tough part is, too, like we were talking about Marcel Reed last week, how Miami shut him down because he couldn't make the decisions inside the pocket. Trinidad Chambliss was showing that he's also a pocket passer. He could stand in the pocket and deliver throws. I mean, when we look at the 4th down throw that he made, standing in the pocket, strike right up the middle. And then when we talk about the throw to ice the game as well, not only was that a great call by Ole Miss's staff, trusting your quarterback, he stands in the pocket. He delivers a beautiful ball in the bucket to ice this game. And then again, I thought one of the biggest things as well for Ole Miss was their kicking, honestly. When you have Lucas Carnarino, who was just nails the entire game, 3 long field goals, all like could have been good from 60 plus. That's the biggest thing too. Like again, when we talk about college football, we talk about constantly the mishaps kicking. When you have a guy that you could lean on in this game, that anything he kicked was right down the middle, could have been good from 10, 15 yards more. That was absolutely tremendous for Ole Miss as well. Now, the other thing I do want to talk about with Ole Miss and how I was feeling in the beginning of this game, and this game pretty much through the first 3 quarters, I don't want to act like Ole Miss didn't make mistakes in this game. I don't want to act like Ole Miss doesn't have stuff to clean up in this game. Yes, Trinidad Chambliss put on a Superman cape and had a tremendous game. The guy was absolutely lights out. But Ole Miss made plenty of mistakes throughout this game that I thought could have definitely cost them. I mean, the first thing that everybody wants to talk about, obviously, is them not being able to rush the field goal team on time or be able to spike the ball before the half ends to get a field goal. When you have a kicker, like I said, that was so nails, they left 3 points on the board there. They also had a tremendous fumble as well. I believe it was Kawan Lacey had a big fumble in that game that led to a Georgia score. I think on 4th down as well, there was 2 4th downs in particular. 1 4th down for Ole Miss that they lined up in Wildcat and did not get the 4th down. That was a major play. Then we look also for Georgia's drive. They go for it on a 4th and 1. They miss a tackle there. Also, Georgia on the fake punt. That was great execution as well. Like, there was plenty of things that I could point at that Ole Miss is going to have to clean up if they want to continue in this tournament. And again, they're dealing with a lot. They're dealing with so much on their coaching staff. But also, I believe in that game, that also gives them an edge. Like, Ole Miss really played like they wanted to dominate this game. And again, we could talk about the X's and O's the whole entire game. Georgia played a really good game, in my opinion. They put up 34 points. Gunnar Stockton puts in 2 touchdowns. Nate Frazier, I think, even though he exited the game early, I thought he ran the ball pretty well. Again, Zachariah Branch did get separation for some key plays, but my biggest thing with Georgia, I said it time and time again, one, not only is their defense not as good as it used to be. Again, this Georgia defense, in my opinion, wasn't a top 3-4 unit in the country. We've seen 2 times Ole Miss put up major points against them. We've seen them get major points put against them against a variety of different teams. Like, this Georgia defense isn't shut down as it used to be. But then again, also, I do think it also came down to like them not having the weapons on offense as well to go to down the stretch. When we look at the last drive, that drive was so phenomenal because, again, I thought the announcer, I forgot which announcer said it, Georgia, like, he said something like Georgia shouldn't score too quick or whatever, and then it was an incomplete pass and they kick a field goal. Like, Georgia had to come down and score in that drive, and this is my thing. Like, I don't think Gunnar Stockton is one of the best quarterbacks in this tournament, even though he does play really well in high leverage moments. And then you look at who are you really going to go to down the stretch? And Ole Miss did make mistakes in the last drive as well. There was a tremendous pass interference call that got them down the field. Then right after that, there was a tremendous holding call. Not a holding call I didn't really necessarily mind because it saved a touchdown. The man got beat in coverage. He held. It saved a touchdown. And it did because they ended up kicking the field goal. But I told you guys I did not believe in this Georgia team all year. No matter, again, if this was their second loss, they were coming into this game with 1 loss. No matter that they have an historic coach in Kirby Smart. I didn't think they had the quarterback necessarily to uplift them, like Trinidad Chambliss uplifted Ole Miss. And then, again, this defense wasn't one of the best Georgia defenses. And their weapons on the outside, like, again, Zachariah Branch does get separation. But outside of that, like, they didn't have that game changer as well. And I believe that's what hurt them down the stretch in this game. Because, again, you look at Ole Miss, again, we could keep reiterating it because it was the best performance of the year. Trinidad Chambliss changed this game for Ole Miss. And, again, Georgia did put up 34 points. Again, usually that's enough, but this Ole Miss game was a shootout. And I told you guys, like I said, time and time again, I love the team in the second set of matchup. This was an upset that I did predict, but Trinidad Chambliss went absolutely nuclear. Again, he's going to be super dangerous within this tournament. I do really think Ole Miss has to clean stuff up, though. Like, I didn't want to gloss over that in this win. Trinidad Chambliss, absolute baller. but Ole Miss is going to have to clean things up. Phenomenal game. Drop down your thoughts below in that game because absolutely ridiculous. Now we're going to get into two games that really flat out two teams didn't show up. We're going to go in Indiana, Alabama first before we go into Tech not showing up as well. Indiana, Alabama. This was another game where I thought that it was going to be the separation of two teams in two different spots. And it's so crazy. This game really showed the parity of college football from years past. When we look at Alabama, the most dominant team again in the last 20 years of college football. And then when we look at Indiana in the new age of college football, a team that nobody expected to be here 3 years ago. Absolute parody of college football in this game. Very ironic. Indiana absolutely dogs them 38-3. Now, this is what we were talking about going into this game. I believe this was going to be the separation of two different teams. When you look at a really good college football team in the landscape of Alabama, and then when you look at a true national championship contender in Indiana. Now, Indiana, again, is going to be the heavy favorite for the rest of this tournament. Again, I do think all three teams outside of them do have a shot. But with Ohio State going down, which we are going to talk about, Indiana is the heavy favorite. I believe Indiana just dominated this game in all facets. Again, very easy to say in a 38-3 game. But when we look at Indiana in the trenches, I thought that was going to be the biggest difference in this game. When we look at the pressure they were getting on Ty Simpson does leave this game early. But again, Alabama's offensive line has been struggling the entire year, and they struggled in this game, in my opinion, as well, yet again. I said it. I don't know how they got out of that Oklahoma game down the stretch when they were down 17-0 and they dominated the trenches. I don't know how they were able to put together a really good game for that offensive line, offensive front, and I predicted it not to happen against this Indiana team. And again, the pressure they were getting on Ty Simpson was absolutely ridiculous. And this is a team that just can't run the football. We said it time and time again. That's what they're going to have to look at in this offseason. When we look at Daniel Hill and you look at Kevin Riley in this game and all these guys, like, they're not able to run the football. How many games are we going to see for Alabama where they rush for under 100 yards? They rush for 23 yards in this game. Like, again, I get it. They were down the entire football game and they're going to have to pass the football. But you have to be able to have some threat of running the football or you just become way too predictable. And that's exactly what happened in this game. Ryan Williams, I thought, had one of his better games, again, where you're looking at no drops. You're looking at a couple of really good catches. But, again, it's just too little too late. When we look at Indiana and their offense, how they absolutely dominated in the trenches. When you look at 215 yards rushing. When you look at Kalen Black, 15 carries for 99 yards. Roman Hemby, 18 carries for 89 yards. Like, again, you could go to really good two running backs, and they're able to gash these holes. And then when you look at Fernando Mendoza, 14 for 16, 3 touchdowns, more touchdowns than incompletions. Alabama's defense just looked very slow in this game. He had Charlie Becker go up for an unbelievable catch. Even though he was wide open, he did have to get up that ladder. Omar Cooper Jr. had a touchdown. Elijah Sarrett had a touchdown. Again, these three receivers are really good. Fernando Mendoza is not going to make mistakes. These two running backs, the holes they were able to open up, like, they just absolutely dominated Alabama, and there's not much more to say about it. And again, this is what we were talking about. We're talking about this all season, like how much the talent pool has expanded over more teams than it's ever been. And you've seen, like, again, with the upsets and with these, again, teams with a bye, like this was Indiana with a bye being the team that advanced, but we've seen teams with a bye being 1-7. Like, the talent pool has expanded over college football more than ever. And this is why a team like Indiana is able to advance over a historic team like Alabama. We are seeing these shift. And that is really hurting Alabama. Like, Alabama doesn't have the depth that they once had under Saban, where they've had, again, first round picks in position groups. They are not that team anymore. Again, do I think Ty Simpson is a really good quarterback? Yes. And do I think it's unfortunate what happened to him in this game being his last game of the season, him not being able to finish that game? Super unfortunate. It's going to be interesting to see what he does as a decision, but I don't know if Ty Simpson is going to be able to come back. I said that because I think Keelan Russell is a guy that they're going to put their future in. I think Ty Simpson would be fighting for a spot. I do think he's going to have to enter the NFL draft. I do think he's a guy that's going to be picked in the first 3 rounds. But, like, again, Alabama doesn't have the run game, doesn't have the depth in the trenches, and you see an Indiana team absolutely dominate them. Indiana is going to be super scary because, like I said, they could beat you in a variety of different ways. They have two really good running backs. They could run the football. They have a quarterback that's been the best quarterback in the country all year that's not going to make mistakes. Their defense is very fast as well. Like, we've seen this defense play against an Alabama. They give up 3 points to Alabama. We've seen this defense play against Ohio State, let up under 20 against Ohio State. Like, and they do have arguably the best coach in college football as well. Like, again, this was a just very funny game to me when you look at the team that's really jumped the most in college football up, and you look at the team that jumped down the most in college football over the course of history, and it just shows how much expanded the talent pool is. But just dominate and win from Indiana. Now we're going to look at another dominating win against Oregon, Texas Tech. Oregon absolutely dominated this game, and again, this was not the showing that I expect. I did predict Oregon to win this game. I'm not surprised that this game was low scoring, but Texas Tech to put up a 0. Again, like, you're looking at two teams in Texas Tech, in Alabama, just completely not showing up in these games. And Dan Lanning, the first thing I want to talk about in this game, Dan Lanning going for it on just a variety of fourth downs. It seemed like almost every fourth down he went for it. Now, I was fine with it in this particular game because you saw throughout this game that Texas Tech just had no answer on offense. They had zero answer. And and Oregon was playing like Texas Tech had completely no answer. Like, they kept going for it on fourth down. And I've seen big games where Dan Lanning has done this and it has backfired. I hope this is not his philosophy throughout the tournament, and I just hope it was for this game. I was super impressed with Oregon's defense, obviously. Not only them skunking Texas Tech, but just the way they came back from that JMU game. I was pretty hard on Dan Lanning and this Oregon team coming out of this JMU game a couple days ago when I went over it, because I thought there was no way they should have let up 500 total yards and they should have let up 34 points against a JMU team. I think it's super important how you go into certain games. Again, you could blow over a cupcake, but it could still not be as convincing as it should have been. And that's what I thought that was. But they came out of that game, and it really seemed like Dan Lanning really ripped this defense apart because they let up 0 points against the number 4 team in the country. Super impressive. The most impressive player for me in this entire game was Brandon Finney. Obviously, he has 3 takeaways. He has 2 interceptions. And they keep on testing this true freshman corner that's been the best corner on this team. Again, we've seen Baron Morton force 2 throws his way. And Brandon Finney is a guy that's not going to let that happen. Mateo Ugalele on the strip sack as well that set up a score. Unbelievable play there. And Dylan Dieneman, in my opinion, is the best player on this entire Oregon team. Again, when you look at him from a draft standpoint, maybe not. But in college football, like, I think he's the best player on this Oregon team. When we look at this Oregon offense, again, they're able to win in a variety of different ways, which I think is so huge for Oregon. I don't think Dante Moore necessarily played a bad game when you look at 26 for 33, 234 yards, and an interception. The interception was pretty bad. I also thought he missed a tremendous read on a fourth down play to Kenyon Sadiq as well. But I thought Dante Moore was playing a game, and we're going to talk about Carson Beck doing this as well, where the defense right now is so dominant for some of these teams that they're not forced to necessarily things. They're not playing the game that you necessarily are expecting them to play, where they're lighting up the scoreboard. I don't think Dante Moore really needed to do too much in this game. Obviously, as Texas Tech puts up 0, I don't think he necessarily played a bad game. I just think he followed the game script and how it was going and how it was trending in the second half of this game. When we look at Oregon's rushing attack, they only put up 64 yards in this game. But again, it was, like I said, a game script game. Jordan Davison does put up 2 touchdowns. But when you look at Jordan Davison, Noah Whittington, De'Ari Hill, they're going to be very dangerous in the next game. They're going to match up against Indiana, which I think I want to preview. I want to do an episode previewing those games later. But again, how much do I tell you guys that I love the team coming around a second time off a loss? So that should be pretty interesting as they're facing the heavy favorite in the country. But Oregon absolutely dominated on defense, which I thought was very much needed. And again, I'm super surprised Texas Tech couldn't get at anything going against this Oregon team. I mean, like I said, Baron Morton fortune throws, and then you have a Texas Tech rushing attack that couldn't really run the football as well. Texas Tech defense, again, I would be super frustrated if I was their defense. I thought their defense played pretty much lights out. I mean, this defense really let up under 20 points because when you look at where they were getting the ball off some turnovers, Texas Tech defense all played phenomenal. Offense couldn't get absolutely anything going. And again, This may just be a product of Texas Tech offense not playing a defense like Oregon the whole entire year. Could be a product of that. I mean, them playing in the Big 12, did they deserve to be in this tournament? 100%. They were one of the best teams coming into this tournament, but they never got tested with a defense like Oregon, and it absolutely showed in this game. I'd still think Texas Tech defense played phenomenal. I thought they were one of the best defense in the country. I think realistically, they let up about 15 points in this game based on the spots Oregon was getting the ball off of turnovers. But again, their offense couldn't get anything going. And it's very crazy to say when you look at an Alabama and you look at a Texas Tech, them scoring 3 points, 0 points. Again, you could argue some teams outside the tournament would have put up a better fight. But again, that's always going to be the case in a 12-team tournament. But again, I'm not going to gloss over it. Got to get these group of 5 teams out. Then when we look at the biggest surprise of the entire slate, Miami, Ohio State, again, tremendous surprise, but this Miami front seven has been absolutely phenomenal in the last 2 games. When we look at the pressure Miami was getting on Julian Sain, I believe that was the difference, making Julian Sain uncomfortable, making him get sacked 5+ times. I thought that was great. And then also Miami's game plan again in another game plan where I thought just what they were doing on defense was exactly the script that they followed. When we look at the rushing attack, only had 45 rushing yards for Ohio State. You're not going to win a game where you have 45 rushing yards. And then, again, Miami lets Jeremiah Smith eat because Jeremiah Smith is going to eat against anybody. 7 receptions, 157 yards, and a touchdown. But other than that, they don't give up much to anybody else. They don't give up much to Carnell Tate. They don't give up much to Brandon Inniss. And I thought it was the perfect game plan, again, for Miami to win this game. Now, in the beginning of this game, I was a little nervous because Mark Fletcher did fumble the football. I thought Miami had to be absolutely perfect in this game. But other than that, they were really good. They did hang on in this game. I thought when Ohio State did put up 2 touchdowns in the second half and they got the ball back down 17-14, in my head I was like, this game's over. Ohio State has the momentum. But Miami was able to hang on. And I think the biggest thing in this game was the pick six. Again, Julian Sain was a guy that I trusted more than anybody not to make mistakes, but that was a major mistake. And it was just really just like Miami read that screenplay. They read that bubble screen. They blew it up. And people are faulting Jeremiah Smith for not making that block. Could he have read it a little bit earlier? Possibly. But at the same time, that play was just completely read. That pick six, in my opinion, was a difference in this game. When we look at a low-scoring game, when we look at outside of the last minute, Miami only putting in 1 touchdown on offense. That was the difference. And again, another big thing in this game for me was Carson Beck. Carson Beck threw the ball 26 times, only for 138 yards and a touchdown. But we talked about in this game what I thought was going to be the difference. Were we going to get the Carson Beck that was going to turn the football over? I'm going to be honest with you guys. If Carson Beck turned the ball over one time in this game would have been a different outcome. Carson Beck was able to not do too much, but again, not turn the football over. That was the major thing. Miami also rushed for 153 yards. That helped them tremendously. When you look at 153 rushing yards, 245 rushing yards, difference in the game. And I believe you see a different Carson Beck as well when we look at him not turning the football over. I think you see a different Carson Beck when Miami is up and has control for the majority of the game, which they had. Miami was in the lead the entirety of this game, and I believe that also helped Carson Beck as well. C.J. Daniels had 49 rushing yards. And you look at Malachi Tony, 5 receptions for 16 yards. Again, the receivers didn't really come to play, but they were relying on this run game and relying on this defense. I thought this defense, again, when you look at how they played against Marcel Reed and Texas A&M, getting to Marcel Reed, making Marcel Reed win within the pocket. Marcel Reed couldn't do that. And then when you look at how this defense played against Ohio State, not letting up the run game, and then also letting Jeremiah Smith eat, but everybody else in this receiving corps absolutely got nothing. 5 pressures, 5 sacks of Julian Sain. Like, this Miami team is riding on their defense, and Carson Beck, again, is not making mistakes. They're going to be very dangerous. And this is a team, again, that has enough on offense. When you look at Mark Fletcher being one of the best backs in the country, and I really like their receiver tandem in Malachi Tony and C.J. Daniels, even though they didn't really need to get going in this game. Miami, in my opinion, just escaped this game towards the end because, like I said, when Ohio State was gaining momentum, I did believe this game was going to be over. Miami does end up getting the ball, putting in a score late, and then getting the interception as well. Miami's going to be dangerous. If the defense continues to play like this, they're going to be absolutely dangerous. My thing is, again, if the defense does let up scores, Are they going to be able to win on the back of Carson Beck? There's going to be eventually times in this tournament, again, it didn't happen against Texas A&M and it didn't happen against Ohio State, but there's going to be a game where Carson Beck is going to have to make big plays. Are they going to be able to win in a different way? That's my question with Miami. But again, now we're looking at two matchups where you're going to see Miami play Ole Miss and you're going to see Oregon play Indiana, and you're going to see an Oregon-Indiana rematch. And then the biggest question for Miami in the Ole Miss game is, are they going to be able to stop a mobile quarterback again? But my difference is with Trinidad Chambliss compared to Marcel Reed. Trinidad Chambliss is a quarterback that's not only mobile, but he could win within the pocket. That's going to be a true test for Miami. Those two games are going to be phenomenal. I want to go in those games more in depth later in the week, but that wraps up this quarterfinal review between the four games. We had four very different games. We had two major upsets in Ole Miss and Miami. Drop down below what you thought of these games, and sloppy Saturday.